You're listening to the Inside Syracuse Basketball podcast presented by Kraus Health, the exclusive healthcare partner of Syracuse Athletics.
Well, welcome back to another edition of the Inside Syracuse Basketball podcast. And today should be a fun conversation with one of the newest members of the Syracuse basketball program. Not a player, a coach. Dan Engelstad, new assistant coach on Adrien Arrey's staff. Dan, welcome to the podcast and welcome to Syracuse.
Yeah, Mike, great to be on. Thanks for having me. And it's been a whirlwind of a couple of weeks, but it's been a very exciting time for myself and my family. And it's been really nice to get the warm reception that we've had.
It really is amazing when you think on it. It's basically been just a little bit over a month.
It's like I said, it's gone by really fast, and had to get here and meet the current guys and get acclimated and learn kind of the operation here. And but it's been really exciting for me, and it's trying to pick up where the staff is kind of started with an elite recruiting class, and just try to keep getting this roster to the finish line. And it's been really an exciting time, as I've mentioned, but also I've been impressed by the entire operation here at Syracuse.
Well, this is a good time to kind of maybe introduce some of the Syracuse fan base to you. My colleague Donna DeToto wrote a really great feature. So if anybody listening hasn't read that, go to syracuse.com, find Donna's story. You'll learn a little bit about Dan there. But to take everybody back, you, for the last 6 years, had been the head coach at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland, in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. The big question that comes up a lot when I talk to people about you is they want to, why would he leave a head coaching job to be an assistant coach? So
yeah, great question. And I've been asked that multiple times, and including by, some other high major assistants that, are ultimately looking to potentially become a Division I head coach. And I was very fortunate to be the head coach at a school that was my dream school. I started my career at Mount St. Mary's, and, so appreciative of my time there as both an assistant and as a head coach. College basketball is a changing landscape. And also, this was opportunity when it was presented by Coach Autry was just one that I couldn't pass. I believe and grew up watching Syracuse basketball and believe it's one of the best brands in the country, as well as I believe in Coach. I believe in what he stands for. I believe in him as a mentor. And as I was sitting there watching games at the Final Four this past year I was with my uncle in Arizona, and my two uncles and aunt. I'm watching those games, and I want to partake in that. I want to have a chance to go make a deep run. And Syracuse is a place that has done it multiple times, including winning a national championship. And, that opportunity was just too good to pass up.
How did that all come about? I read in Donna's story that you talked to Adrien Arrey at the Final Four, but you guys knew each other previously. Had there been a couple conversations, even by phone, prior to getting out to Phoenix?
Yeah, it really all came to fruition out at the Final Four. That's when it became real. We sat down and had a at length conversation. We had floated the idea, and we, it was there, but it really wasn't real until that time. And, so the timeline kind of it moved fast. And, he had called a few times. Obviously, everyone knows that he was recruiting Dakota, and, asked my opinion on that. And so I think those conversations probably, got me on his radar.
So who said something first? Because again, I go back to the first question about you being a head coach at the Mount. Did he ask you if you were thinking about maybe becoming an assistant for him, or did you kind of have to let him know, hey, I'd be open to the idea of replacing?
Yeah, it just came up kind of organically, and it was just, it was in the conversation about, we were talking about the job and being a head coach, and that's kind of how it came to be. And, it was, the idea was floated, and then we just kind of ran from there.
Interesting. And you mentioned you guys had known each other for a while and everything. You also mentioned that you got your start in coaching at Mount St. Mary's. And just so anybody listening doesn't think, oh, that's where he got the head coaching job, you're referring to actually getting your starting coaching at the age of 22 as an assistant coach there, correct?
Yeah, no, that's where it all started. I was very fortunate. I think I was the only one that could afford it at the time. I was making $5,000 in grad school for my first couple of years there. And it was a good story. I live now with the current, with the former vice president of the Mount, and I actually had my contract, and he told me that they grossly overpaid me for those couple of years. But it was the place where I hadn't been involved with Division I basketball. Coach Milan Brown, who's now associate head coach of Pitt, gave me an opportunity. I was at the time, just graduated, was running camps and clinics in Bethesda, Maryland, and didn't know if that was the path that I was going to go. We started an LLC, and Coach Brown called me a month after, interviewing with him, went up to the Mount multiple times and offered me the position. And that first year, we ended up going to the NCAA tournament. We ended up playing Coppin State in the playing game, and then played Carolina. And, for me, I got hooked. I fell in love with the game, fell in love with the workouts, fell in love with, just the profession. And, it was an amazing opportunity, those 3 years as an assistant, and, led to Holy Cross, and then becoming the head coach of Southern Vermont, and now back to Mount St. Mary's and here. So I've been very fortunate to have the career that I've had, but it started all at Mount St. Mary's, and the pay wasn't a lot, but the reward was, it was great.
I was what? Granted, you're only 22, and basically, college students all know how to get by on a little. And you were about college student age at 22, but still, how do you make it work on $5,000?
Yeah, I was fortunate to have parents that were supportive of me chasing the dream. I did camps, like I mentioned, so I'd saved up some money, was able to crash at my dad's house at the time, and just, worked, and, coach would be very friendly with camps and clinics, and I would run those. So just, I just made ends meet and wasn't worried about it, had fun, and enjoyed it. And eventually I realized that, I got to make a salary, and a couple years in, ended up getting to that. So it was, I definitely look back at those early years very fondly, and, it was a great learning experience.
And like you said, you followed Milan Brown up to Holy Cross, where, he was the head coach there. So you're still working under him. But after a couple years at Holy Cross, you took your first head coaching job at Southern Vermont, right? A Division II school. How old were you when you became that head coach at Southern Vermont?
So I was 29 years of age, and had been with Coach Brown, who was my mentor, an unbelievable man and mentor, and somebody who taught me a lot in this business. But I at that point, I really wanted to be a head coach. I wanted to call a timeout and screw it up and figure it out. And I was able to land a job at Southern Vermont. Some people thought I was crazy for taking that job, because they'd really struggled. They had won one game the year before we got there. But for me, I looked at it as opportunity, and I wanted to, run my own program, and they afforded me that opportunity. And our first game, we played an NBA player, a current NBA player, Duncan Robinson, was on Williams, and we ended up winning that game, I think 88-87. And I've seen Duncan a few times, and I laughed, with him. Now he's doing quite well for himself in the NBA, and obviously went to the Final Four at Michigan. And I always remind him that his first college game was a loss to Southern Vermont College. And we had a good run, and it was a really special time in my career. But just they gave me a chance. I was applying to a lot of different places at that time, and I was on the younger side, but I was I was very fortunate that they took a chance on me. And I think we had a special run there, and I still keep in contact with a lot of those guys.
I guess if they only won one game the year before you got there, sounds like a tough gig, but they weren't going to fire you if you only won two.
Yeah, so we won the first one the first night. It felt pretty good. That hopefully we get a couple more after that. And I was able to surround myself with great coaches, and we recruited a lot of new faces. So even that Williams game, we had 11 new bodies that day. So they didn't have a scouting report on any of them, and we were able to just kind of flip it pretty quick.
How do you win at a place like Southern Vermont? Oh, we just lost lighting. There we go. You're gonna have to move every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I was worried about the lighting. What was the question?
I was like, at a place like Southern Vermont, Division II school, how do you win? How do you get players?
Yeah, I was able to, the one thing that I was doing a lot during my time at Holy Cross was a national recruiting job. So I was the young guy on staff. I was the 25-year-old, 26, 27, and flying around all over the country and just recruiting. And through those networks and people that I'd seen, there were guys that maybe I couldn't get at Holy Cross, but I had deep ties to Washington D.C. area. That's where I was from, and we brought in I think 6 or 7 guys from that area, and also brought in New Zealander and recruited guys from Minnesota. We were all over the map, and just I was able to tap into some of the networks that I'd made through my time as an assistant, both at Mount St. Mary's and at Holy Cross, and was able to bring in some really high character players and really talented guys as well.
So after 5 extremely successful seasons at Southern Vermont, and when I say extremely successful, 104 wins against 34 losses. So highly successful. I think we fit the definition. Then you go back to Mount St. Mary's. Tough job, right?
Great job. A great job. And it's, they were coming off one of the best runs that they've had. Jamie and Christian did a terrific job and went to multiple NCAA tournaments. It was kind of the start of the transfer era. So when I took over, we inherited 1 point per game coming back. So we kind of was a rebuild within a very successful run. But a great job, a supportive network. Being here at Syracuse, you see kind of that family aspect that's here. Got a chance to go to the gala the other night and just see kind of the pride that Syracuse has, but Mount St. Mary's has that as well on a smaller scale. Place that people have an affinity towards, and for me, I kind of knew that world, and for me, that was a dream opportunity. That's where they gave me a chance to be an assistant coach. That's where I fell in love with coaching, and they believed in me and knew that it was going to be a build, and I'm very thankful that they gave me that opportunity, and just really learned a lot during my time there. The Division I game had changed a lot since my time at Southern Vermont, so I had to try to be a quick study and figure out what players we get involved with, how to be successful, and in our 3rd season there, we ended up going to the NCAA tournament, and that was kind of a goal of ours to get to that point. And 4th year we lost at the semis, and we're banging on the door, and then we made the transition to the MAC, and that was an exciting move for the university, and one that we were figuring out, and I know they will, and they'll have a great run. But the Mount, like I said, it's one of the smaller Division I university. Enrollment is just under 2,000, but it's a powerful place in that area, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do and continue to build upon.
Yeah, if anybody out there doesn't exactly know where Mount St. Mary's is, like we said, he's in Emmitsburg. So you probably don't know where Emmitsburg if you're listening out there, but it's just north of Frederick, Maryland, just south of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's a gorgeous area. It's just unbelievable. And of course, if you pass it on the highway, you can see the big statue of the Blessed Mother rising above the trees. It's an amazing spot.
Yeah, it is. And it's a basketball school, and they love it. And we had one of the best mid-major environments. A couple thousand fans come, and it's our guys were celebrities, and it's a good spot. And I never took it for granted, and really thankful for the 6 years that I had there as the head coach.
Now, was it that head coaching run at Mount St. Mary's when you met Adrien Arrey, or was that during your first turn when you were a young assistant at Mount?
Yeah, this goes back decades at this point. When I first started, I was 22, and Coach Arrey was at Paul VI High School working with Glenn Farello, and we went through that gym a few times. It was my first time really recruiting, and he was just, I remember the personality, and just we had some great conversations. We stayed in touch. I remember when he got the director of basketball operations job at Virginia Tech, and I just started out at the Mount and had conversation, because my job was the 3rd assistant at Mount St. Mary's, but it basically was doing the operations role. So just, connected with him, let him know I'd be here as a resource whenever, and stayed in touch over the years. I remember coming to Syracuse when I got the Southern Vermont job, and Coach Arrey hosted myself and one of my assistants, and we watched practice here at Syracuse, and just followed his career, and not surprised at where he's at, just knowing who he is. But it was, it's been fun to see his climb into being the head coach of Syracuse from an assistant at Paul VI. And, it's been earned, and I know he's done a great job here, and will continue to.
I know you've only been in the job here at Syracuse a little over a month, but what are the major differences between coaching at the level of Syracuse versus coaching at the Mount?
Yeah, I mean, the facilities obviously are one. The ability to bring a recruit on campus and see what we have to offer here, and the staff, um, just the resources are greater. Obviously it's a new era of college basketball. NIL is different as well, and learning that world. And but it's basketball is basketball, recruiting is recruiting, and relationships are relationships. And so there are a lot of parallels, even though the difference of levels. But just trying to learn, what Coach Autry and what he's looking for, and what we're looking for as a staff, and trying to fit in, and also help and elevate Syracuse to the level that I know we all know is possible.
I was wondering, basically it seems like the last month has been spent at the portal. The transfer portal seems to be dominating conversation all over college basketball. What's that like for you now that you're at a place like Syracuse?
Yeah, and it was also something that we dealt with a lot at Mount St. Mary's. We've gone in the portal, so I understand the portal. We've done, we definitely are continuing to have conversations as a staff about it. But we're not forgetting about the high school guys as well. It's a very important class for us in this 2025. So we're know that we need to finish this roster, and make sure that we, bring the right people into the program, and also focus on getting a really special class in that 2025. And we feel like we're heading in a good direction in both. So, but yeah, recruiting doesn't stop in this new era. So it's just, staying on top of it, and making sure, we're all on the same page, and Coach Autry does a great job of that, and making sure that our staff is connected, aligned, and attacking both the portal and high school recruiting.
I was wondering about, your recruiting when you go out, like in your past jobs, you've been, recruiting guys that are going to play at a lower level, right? Division II guys, Mount St. Mary's recruits are going to be different than Syracuse ACC level recruits. But I've always told folks, no, you got to understand, like when Dan in those years went into gyms and told a high school coach he was interested in his fifth guy, or maybe a guy coming off the bench, those high school coaches love you, and they'll remember you because you took a chance on a kid that needed one. I have to think that those relationships are going to help you in your current job. Am I right in that dynamic that the high school coaches love seeing the Southern Vermonts and the Mount St. Mary's and those guys come into their gyms?
Yeah, and that's been exciting too, is going into gyms and being like, we can go get, some of the best players in the country. Our brand can hold up against anybody. And being able to talk about Syracuse and talk about Coach Autry. I mean, he is a dynamic personality who's a player's coach, and being able to sell this brand it's not hard. But also, yes, the relationships that I've had in the past, it's a lot easier when I'm calling as a Syracuse assistant, where they get excited, they move things around, and they make it happen. And so it's we went on a recruiting visit last week together, or the last couple of days of the recruiting period, and just to see how excited these young star players are, like top 50, top 100 players are, to see Syracuse there, and really build a relationship up. And the next step is getting them to campus. But that has been really fun to be able to call previous connects and relationships, and now I can go in and get the top guy. And that's guys that I've admired or watched and seen previous years on teams. Now we can go after the ace.
What kind of other roles do you think you'll fill for Adrien and on his staff? I mean, your head coaching experience. I mean, is that something you think he'll tap into? Like, because you've had to, make head coaching decisions for 11 years at two different schools.
Yeah, Coach and I've already had some great basketball conversations, and I think this is going to be a big summer of making sure everything is organized and how the operation is going to go. I'm excited to help anyway and add value any way that I can. I've been able to work on both sides of the ball, been able to work with guards, been able to work with forwards. So however I can add value, I'm here for Coach. But it's a big time collaboration here. Coaches, all of the coaching staff is very capable, smart, and he really, our voices matter, and we, are working on to figure out how the coaching delegation is divvied up. But just excited to add any way I can. And Coach knows, and just from our many years that, I'm always here for him, and whatever, any conversation he can have. I've been in a lot of situations that now he's been in for a year, but I've sat in that seat. I know what it feels like, and want to help him any way I can and support him.
No, that want to let listeners in a little bit more about who you are and your background and everything. You grew up in Maryland, right? Montgomery County, Maryland. You mentioned Bethesda earlier, where you held some camps. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to Walt Whitman High School right outside of the DC area. I could walk a block and I'd be in DC. Lived in Maryland for my entire childhood. My dad did work internationally, so I lived in Norway for 6 months when I was 7 and 8. But spent the majority of my childhood in Maryland, and then played Division III basketball at St. Mary's College of Maryland, and then got finished up there. And that's where I got the opportunity at Mount St. Mary's I think I was the youngest assistant at the time at 22 years of age. And that's how it all started.
St. Mary's out on the eastern shore of Maryland, right?
Yep.
I did look this up. You're replacing Jerry McNamara on the coaching staff here. Jerry, of course, is Syracuse's all-time leader in three-pointers made. You are St. Mary's all-time leader in career assists. At least I think you still hold the record. Am I right about that?
I did hold the record.
Oh, no.
I graduated as it, and it got beat pretty quickly thereafter. So the recruit, I think it shows that I can recruit pretty well. There was a kid that I hosted, and he came in and he shattered the record. He was a special player at our alma mater, and but yeah, it was fun to own it for the couple years that I had. But I was a pass first guy. I enjoyed getting my teammates involved. I got in the paint and liked to dish it out. I had some really good shooters at the time when I played, and I look fondly back at those memories, and wish I knew what I know now playing from back then. But I had a great experience, and Coach Harney, who's there now, has done a great job with that program.
Just let some folks know a little bit more about yourself as a person. You're married with 3 young daughters.
Yep.
Your
Very
wife?
blessed, man. I got an amazing support. My wife is my family calls her D1. She was a D1 softball player at Holy Cross, and was she's a lot better looking, smarter than I am, and I outkick my coverage in a big way. And I got 3 daughters. Oldest is 6, almost 7, and 4 and 2. So our household is a lot going on. There's a lot of action in it, but they're all in. They're excited for this move, and looking forward to get up here. We got a lot going on right now, but the hope is to get the whole family here up at the end of June.
Yeah. So who's the better athlete in the family there? If your wife played softball at Holy Cross?
Yeah, like I said, I think she's got me in every facet, so I'll give it to her. But I can beat her in pickleball, so at least I have that for.
Well, you got that. And you know what? If the coaching staff ever plays the players in a softball game, you got a ringer for the staff, right?
Oh, my wife has always been called from her previous companies to. My uncle worked at Yale. He wanted to fly her in and have her be on the softball team. So she's been that ringer, and usually leads to a championship.
Now, the first story I ever wrote about you, first story ever, it was a month and a half ago. I was looking for a photo to go with it, and I find one there, in our system. It's you in coaching, and you were in a bow tie, and it dawned on me, oh shoot, it's Mount St. Mary's. It must have been an ode to Jim Phelan sort of night, the legendary coach who always wore bow ties. Are we going to see the bow tie look at Syracuse, Dan?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Coach Autry's a big suit guy during games, and I'm good with that. I wore the bow tie one time, and that was after Coach Phelan passed away.
Okay.
Lived to 91, was a Hall of Fame coach, was a mentor of mine. I remember getting the job at 22, and Coach Phelan would come in the office, and we'd have these just, basketball and life conversations. And I stayed in touch with him during my time at Southern Vermont. We actually practiced at the Mount Gym a few times.
That must have been
daughter
great.
was the athletic director there. So he was Mount St. Mary's basketball, and he was kind of he was the larger than life figure that stayed there his entire career and lived in Emmitsburg, for his whole adult life. And so when he passed away, we played Villanova, and at the time, Coach Wright was very generous. He put on a bow tie pin, and I put on the bow tie. And, I had a good feeling about that night. We were coming off an NCAA tournament run. I think we went down like 18-0. So it didn't lead to much success on the court. But Coach Phelan is a Hall of Famer, a legend, and, thankful that I was fortunate enough to learn from him.
That's a great story. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everybody listening out there. Thank you to our sponsor as well. We'll see you next time on the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast.
Join us next time for the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast, presented by Crouse Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics.